In the tapestry of life, where every thread holds a story, America in Black and White emerges as a haven for the voices echoing through the heart of our communities. In this podcast, we wade through the rivers of our collective experiences, celebrating the vibrant hues of change brought forth by the whispers of hope and the roars of action. It's more than just a conversation. It's a journey into the heart of our society, illuminated by the light of those daring to dream and do. Join us, and let your voice be the melody that guides us toward a dawn where every color finds its place in the masterpiece of our shared destiny. Together, let's paint a future brimming with the positives that dwell in our minds and the actions that shape our world.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of America in Black and White, where we are coloring conversations on the canvas of America. Tonight, we're going from perfusionist to patient, a journey of healing, advocacy, and empowerment. Our special guest, Mr. Mark Brezzell. Mark Brezzell is a dynamic and influential speaker known for his captivating presence and thought-provoking insights. With a career spanning over 2 decades in clinical and medical affairs, Mark has become a trusted advisor to key opinion leaders, entrepreneurs, students seeking career changes, and even health advocates nationwide. Drawn from his extensive experience as a professional networker, consultant, and health advocate, Mark has empowered countless individuals and organizations to unlock their full health and wellness potential and achieve sustainable success. His engaging speaking style, coupled with his deep expertise in areas such as cardiovascular medicine and a personal testimony around diabetes, consistently leaves audience inspired and equipped with actionable strategies to strive in today's rapidly evolving health and wellness landscape. Mark's passion for personal and professional growth is contagious, and his commitment to helping others navigate health challenges and seize wellness and happiness has earned him recognition as a thought leader in the field. Whether delivering a keynote address, leading a workshop, or providing one-on-one coaching, Mark's mission remains the same: to inspire, empower, and elevate individuals and organizations to reach new heights. Outside of his speaking engagements, Mark is an avid sports buff, lifelong learner, and dedicated mentor. He holds a specialized clinical degree in clinical cardiovascular perfusion from Johns Hopkins Hospital School of Perfusion Science and is published co-author in numerous scientific publications and his personal memoir. For transformative experience that will engage you and drive tangible health results, invite Mark Brezzell to share his expertise and insights at your next event. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring to the show Mr. Mark Brezzell. Hello, sir.
Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Okay, give me a second. What about now?
Are you logged in twice? Yeah, you logged in twice. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I can hear you.
All right, let me shut this off because I'm not hearing you through my computer for whatever reason.
I think that other place that you're logged in on, you're gonna have to log out of that one.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Okay, I logged out, but can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
But I can't hear you. Let me change my speakers.
Oh.
Okay.
Can you hear
You
me
hear me?
now? Yes.
I can't hear you. Give me one more second. What about now?
Yes, I can hear you.
I don't hear you at all. Give me one more second. I guess we should have done this. Let me see if I can play around with this. All right, what about now?
I can hear you.
I can't hear a thing. Is there another way I can log in
Oh.
so I can at least hear you?
You see if you can log into your phone.
All right. And then I'm gonna try one more thing. My apologies for the connectivity issues.
No problem. No problem at all.
All right. What I'm going to try to do, because I can't log on to them simultaneously, otherwise I'm going to get the feedback. But for whatever reason, my computer is not picking up the audio, so I can see you, but I can't hear you. So let me try to see if I can work through that. That's correct. Okay, what about now? Say something.
Can you hear me?
I am perplexed at the moment. Let me try one more thing. I'm going to log back on through my tablet, and I'm going to sign off on the computer and try that. That might work. Okay. I'm going to log off to here, and I'm going to call you on my tablet.
Okay.
Where do I log out at? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Right. Sorry about that.
No problem whatsoever. Hey, look, what I read for your bio, is there anything you'd like to add to that before we get into
I
the
didn't hear a
show?
thing you said.
Okay.
It's basically what you wrote.
No, it's what you sent is
That's
what I
fine.
used.
I don't really have anything more.
Okay.
I'm just trying to get, before you get set up here. Let me do one more thing here. And yeah, I don't know. I apologize for the technical difficulties. I thought everything was all set, but I couldn't hear you on my computer. And I don't, so I'm on my tablet and it's not the same. I wish I was on my computer, but it's okay. We just go get through this thing. We gonna get through this thing together.
Yes, sir.
All right. How do I look? Okay.
Yes, sir. You're fine.
All right. It's fine. Let's. I'm good to go.
Okay. So, Mark, I just want to welcome you to America in Black and White. And so I just want to ask you as we get going is, how are you feeling
I'm
today?
feeling great. I mean, outstanding. This was a good day, and I'm always excited to talk, talk and dialogue and just have really good, robust discussions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So can you tell us what does it mean to you to be featured on a platform that centers Black excellence and legacy?
I look at it as honorable because, we're living in a time where we are, it's more of a way to try to take away from our legacy. But we're people of rich legacy. And regardless of the climate that we're living in, we know that the cream always rises to the top.
Yes, sir, it does.
And I think that this is a great opportunity to really share our accomplishments and also support each other throughout our struggles.
Yes, sir. Can you take us back to your early days? What first drew you into the world of medicine?
Well, it was kind of interesting when I was a young kid. My father actually, they bought me an old medical book. It was a medical dictionary, and I was a bookworm when I was a kid. And I used to, read this book. It was just so fascinating, and half the stuff I probably didn't fully understand what I was reading, but but I would read myself to sleep every night. I would have it by my bed, and at each evening, I'm supposed to be asleep, but I have a little flashlight, and I'm reading, and I'm learning, and I just found the body so fascinating, and I just said, this is really interesting, and the interesting thing is that initially, my background is more of a clinical specialist. It's a very special. It's a specialty. I was actually, when I went to undergrad, I was in a pre-medicine program, was about to, ready to go. But the issue with me was that I went through the school in 3 years. I did a 4-year program in 3 years, and I was a little burnt out afterwards because I didn't go right into college, into my, in medicine. I changed my major multiple times at a different university. Then eventually I transferred down to the undergraduate university where I finally got my undergraduate degree. So literally like 6 years prior to my the graduating. So I was a little burnt out when I finished. I got through it, and so I said, well, I'm gonna take me a gap year, and that kind of set my trajectory into clinical cardiovascular perfusion sciences.
So what was your experience like at Johns Hopkins Hospital School of Perfusion Science?
Outstanding. And I say that because that was an opportunity for me to meet many giants. In fact, a couple of my mentors, because this is being recorded, I'll just be very, very, very succinct and vague on this one. But one of my mentors was Dr. Benjamin Carson, and when he was still in medicine, when he was actually still practicing. And I had a chance to meet his family, been over his house quite a few times. And I really got a chance to kind of get to know him a little bit. And very interesting guy. And he was somebody that really, I was very enamored in his accomplishments and the things that he has done. But another guy there as well that I had a chance to really get to know, his name is Dr. Levi Watkins, and he is truly, he's an innovator. He basically was the first African American, first surgeon, not even African American, to put in a defibrillator into a human. And he was already 73 years old when I was there. And I remember he invited me to his office, and he said, "Young man, I just want to talk to you." And his whole office was just decorated with just placards of presidential plaques and sports entities. And he was really big in the civil rights movement. In fact, he was a deacon when Dr. King was pastor down in Alabama, and also in Georgia, because they followed each other. So when he went down to Atlanta, he was actually the deacon there when he was there, and so he was part of all the civil rights movements. He was part of the freedom walks. He was part of all of the many of the Dr. King's exploits. He was also there as well, and so he was just telling me all these things. But what's interesting about it is, he said, I'm telling you all this for multiple reasons. He basically set me aside. He said, listen, the reason why I'm telling you this is not because I'm boasting. I'm telling you this because this is legacy building. And he was the one who told me, you, young man, are the first person that I've seen come through in your program like me. And he's the one who told me that. And he said, being the first, there's a legacy that will be established. And he says, always, always, never look up, but always keep your head down and always be humble in how you go about your business. Be proud of what you've done, but don't be boastful to the point where because that was an issue at Hopkins, in my opinion. At times where there was, some of the people they kind of looked down on people. I got it going on, but he was like, listen, it doesn't matter whether you're CEO or the janitor. We always try to maintain an even keel. And that was something that he really instilled.
So how did your clinical training shape your worldview?
Well, it helped me to recognize that, first of all, there's not very many differences between us. We're all just people. Doesn't matter whether you're black, right. It doesn't matter, from a philosophical, from a physiologic standpoint. And, we're all the same. We all bleed, we all eat, we all need rest. And I think it just, for me, it gave me somewhat of an also spiritualistic tone, because I realized that I was one of the few scientists that really did not prescribe to the concept of that we just popped up randomly. That I felt that there's no way our body was just too complex for this thing to just be but just to have happened over X amount of millions of years. I felt that, I've seen everything. I looked around. When I look at the body, I think of a car, I think of a plane, I think of all these high-tech electronics and high-tech machines. All of them had an originator. All of them had a designer. All of them had a creator. And that's something that really stuck out to me.
So what inspired your transition from perfusionist to patient?
Well, it was actually as a perfusionist that I became a patient. What was interesting is that a year before I actually was diagnosed with diabetes, one of our anesthesiologists actually approached me and approached us about building a protocol around patients that had diabetes and they were undergoing cardiopulmonary bypass. And I thought it was rather interesting because I got in there, I started doing the research, and we put together some protocols and implemented some kind of a little strategy in dealing and trying to improve outcomes in our patients, diabetic patients having heart surgery. And that was very interesting to me. Lo and behold, literally a year later, I just got married. Within 6 months of my marriage, I started exhibiting symptoms that, and we can go into that later, but basically that was kind of my aha moment when, I did not recognize what was going on with me, because in my mind, that couldn't be it.
Mhm.
It was, I'm looking at everything else but what the truth really was.
So in that particular time, when you start to exhibit these symptoms and so forth, I mean, were you thinking to, as in, how you could diagnose yourself and you're just like, okay, well, this is what this is, and let me just fix it this way? Or what was it that finally got you to go to the doctor?
Well, what got me to go to the doctor was I was the first, I was exhibiting the typical classic symptoms. So initially, I had unexplained weight loss. I was losing weight. My clothes started getting bigger. I had this ravenous appetite. Now I was very active at that time. I was, I would ride my bikes. I was really avid biker. So I attributed that to my exercise. But when more and more symptoms started to present itself, that's when it started to become pretty obvious to me that there was more to the story. I remember one time I was laying down taking a nap. I just got home from the hospital and I jumped up to grab the phone because the phone rang, and my eyes, it was like somebody was shining a light in my eyes, just a glare. And I thought that was a little weird. And I'm thinking, what's going on? But it went away. I just blew it off. But it was when one day I was on my way home. I left the hospital. I went to the bathroom. And as soon as I got in the car, halfway home, it's like I had to go to the bathroom. I had to find somewhere. I'm like, wait a minute, I just went to the bathroom. What's going on? And that kind of clued me in. When I went, I found a drugstore. I went to use the restroom there. And while I was in the drugstore, something told me this is not right. And that's when I went and bought one of those over-the-counter urinalysis tests, and that test I came back positive. And that's when I made my appointment to go to my doc, and he basically confirmed everything, and I just was floored.
Wow. So, how did your personal health journey with diabetes reshape your professional mission?
Well, I think it helped me to recognize that there's more to medicine. There's more to, particularly surgery, what I was involved in, than just treating patients. My thing is, what I've noticed is that there were many clinicians, there were doctors, there were nurses, other people around me, that it was like we didn't really practice what we preached. you know,
That is true.
I saw a lot. I'm thinking, you're operating on the hearts, but yet we're not eating healthy. We're not having healthy lifestyle. We're not doing the things that will keep us from having our colleagues operating or working on us. And I think that really was kind of another aha moment for me, because I'm like, I see what's being done. I see the impact of poor health, and not taking care of your health. And I made up in my mind that no, I don't want to be subjected to what I do every day.
Right.
And that really helped me change my attitude on many things.
So, what was the most humbling moment in your health transformation?
I think the most humbling, obviously, is, as a clinician now, former clinician, because I don't practice anymore. I was in a hospital for 10 years and transitioned in industry. But I think the most humbling is recognizing that, I have a condition that requires 24/7 observation. And
Mm,
and it's such a heavy mental impact to recognize that I could be so good for 6 days, even 6.5 days.
mhm.
And one mistake, one lackadaisical effort can have lasting impact, almost lethal impact. And I think that really, kind of blew my mind. Even as a type 1 diabetic, I was thinking to myself, if it wasn't for this particular drug, insulin, this hormone, I couldn't survive. And so that was kind of a humbling point for me to recognize that, I have a condition, but yet I'm able to by proper management and doing the things necessary, I'm able to extend and ward off all of the negative consequences, negative sequelae of this condition. That you can live with it, you can live well with it, but you have to pay attention to it.
So how do you define wellness today?
I think wellness is holistic. I think wellness is a clear mind, of physical capabilities, mental capabilities, and it's something for those who whatever your religion may be, but spiritual capabilities. I think that wellness is about being complete, being holistic, being total. Not just eating right, but also, do you get enough rest? Do you go out there and try to get some exercise? Do you try to, just trying to be balanced? I think wellness to me is a balanced lifestyle.
I think that's a hard thing, though, I think for a lot of us, and especially when, something like, like diabetes forces you to get into this transition.
Right.
And so when you have to do that transition, there's lots and lots and lots of things that goes into that. But of course, we'll get into that a little bit later on to the show, because this is very, very interesting. Just as we're hearing this, because I know that this has got to be something for a lot of people to get some learning experiences from.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, what does living with purpose mean to you?
Well, I think that many times we go through, many people say, well, I don't know what my purpose is in life. I don't know why I'm here. I'm just living my life vicariously. For me, living with purpose is understanding why you're here and also having an impact while you're here. I think too many times we have a lot of our young people who have lost sight of the fact that they have a purpose. Everybody was born with a purpose. And it goes beyond just doing for you. Many times for me, being purposeful is outward, not inward. Is what can I do for somebody else? How can I help somebody else? How can I educate or mentor somebody else? And I think it's important for us. A village takes individuals that invest and put time in those that aren't doesn't have the experience or as mature. And I think that's, for me, a purposeful living.
Wow. So let me ask you this, because, it was something you said that was really key in that last statement.
Mm-hmm.
And that is people that don't know what their purpose is.
Right.
Do you think that that's something that's innate, or can people be taught their purpose?
I think it's a combination. I think they can be taught how to identify their purpose.
Okay.
Because I think that what their purpose are their purpose. And I can't teach you something that's not innate for you. I can only help you to see what you are, helping you understand that, okay, maybe what I do, what comes easy to me may not come easy to you. And what comes easy to me, okay, where you help them understand, what do you like? What do you do? What rolls off your tongue? What do you do without even thinking? What do you do without even reacting? With your first reaction, how do you react? And these types of things help people to understand what their purpose is. And that's kind of my focus, is helping you to identify who you really are.
Let's transition over to your work as a keynote speaker and thought leader.
Yes.
You've spoken on stage across the country.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite keynote moment?
I think I enjoyed an opportunity. This was actually this year, matter of fact. This was back in February. It was kicking off Black History Month. And I was invited as an author to participate in a first time event that I thought would really establish. It was amazing. Basically, the city of Huntsville, Alabama, the Huntsville Museum for the Arts was sponsoring a Black Excellent extravaganza. Basically, so the guy was, they wanted to highlight all of the different key components of the Black experience, and it was all around art, and so for the most part it was around art, because it was an art, it was a museum. And so they invited me down as an author. And not only did I come down there, I had a chance to share, my experience, my testimony as a diabetic patient. And I had a chance to do a book showing, a presentation, and interacting with the community. That to me was a highlight, because first of all, the city of Huntsville, they were trying to distance themselves from their racist past, so they wanted to have us highlight, various skills. So you had sculptors, you had poets, you had a couple of musicians. They just basically highlight the different different elements of art, and I was invited as an author, and it was just such a tremendous experience to participate in something like that, just to see all the different levels of gifts and talents that were on display, and the fact that they thought of enough of me to include me in something of this caliber, because I felt there's a whole lot of people out there that was far more, far more, eligible than I was. But the fact of the matter is I was a brand new author, and they felt that my background was unique because of the different areas that covered, between clinic and industry, and actually as a patient sharing my story of diabetes. They felt that I offered a pretty unique perspective for people, and so that was something that I really hold near and dear.
Wow. What's the core message you aim to deliver in every talk?
If something, you better than anyone. If something's not right, get it checked out. Too many times, I've heard people say, or I've heard it shared, that if we had known sooner, we could have improved your outcome. My philosophy is, I'd rather go and it be a false alarm or not a big deal than for me to go and they tell me, I wish that you'd come here 6 months ago.
Wow. Now that in itself, that speaks volumes, because, I will say, even for most of us as men, a lot of men just don't like that idea of going to the doctor.
No, we don't.
And so what do you think that mindset's about? Because that in itself, I know that it's kind of like something that just happens, and that too is something here.
Yeah.
But why do you think that is?
We feel invincible, and we don't want to feel vulnerable. It's an element of vulnerability, man. We've always been raised, we're the man. By me going to the doctor, or by me addressing some sort of symptomatic challenge, it's almost as though you're saying you're admitting your vulnerability, not recognizing that you're vulnerable, regardless. We are, I'd rather go to the doctor and they tell me that there's something going on with my heart, but we can treat it, than for me to go to the doctor via EMS, where they're now treating me emergently with a hope and prayer that everything can be, can be okay. Give me some head ups, let me know what's going on. I don't like surprises, especially when my life's in the balance.
Yeah, at least not that kind anyway.
You got that right.
So how do you prepare mentally and spiritually before stepping on stage?
Well, first of all, I'm very spiritual, so I pray every day. Even before this podcast, I pray that His Holy Spirit would fill me, and I pray that He would guide my thoughts and guide my words, that somebody would be blessed. For me, everything that I do is to be a witness, and I try to, I when I wrote this book, one of the things I tried to do is I want to expose myself, which is the first time I've ever done anything quite like this, because this book really exposed me in my vulnerability, because I demonstrated how I was very upset, and how I was angry for years. I was an angry Black man for years when I was diagnosed. I didn't understand it. I was frustrated by it. I was new in my marriage. My wife was pregnant, and I'm thinking, really? But I recognize that we all have emotions, and I think it's important for me to, that's why I want to put that in the book, because a lot of people, that's something we don't talk about. There's a lot of people suffering in silence because we don't feel as worthy, or that maybe we're the only ones that feel this way. And so for me to prepare myself to go, and I want to make sure that people understand that I'm real, that I'm human, that I'm transparent, and this is my story.
So, what role does storytelling play in your presentation?
I'm very good at stories. I was always, I remember my wife would always tell me, Mark, when you tell a story, it's like everybody in the room is on the edge of their seat. They're hearing you, because I'm going through talking about things that happened in my past, or we're laughing about things, and they're like, people always, you suck up the oxygen when people are like, they're sitting on the edge of their seats when you're talking. And so that's something that I kind of incorporate when I go. I tell them, my experiences, particularly in this diabetes walk, because I tell them how the various trek that led to my diagnosis. I tell them a little bit how post-diagnosis, how not only is it, I think with diabetes and storytelling, I let them know that diabetes isn't just about you. It's about your whole network, your whole circle, whoever's worked, your family, your children, your aunts. I mean, I'm just saying, people are impacted. If you're at a gathering and you're having a diabetic episode where you're hypo or hyperglycemia, they react. And so it helps you understand, it helps them understand what to expect, some things to look for, even become more educated as they interact with you. So I think it's important for people to understand that this is not a condition of isolation.
Wow. So how do you tailor your message for different audiences, students, entrepreneurs, and health advocates?
Well, students particularly, I focus on the fact that for me to have ended up at Johns Hopkins was not my original trek. When I graduated from high school, I graduated with C average. Basically, I was not magna cum laude. I was not summa cum laude. I was thank you laude. And so my thing was, hey, I got out. Now what do I do the rest of my life? And I stumbled into Eastern Michigan University, and they barely took me. They basically said, if you survive, they basically told me, if you last the semester, we'll let you stay. That's the grounds in which I would, enter the college. So I let people know that where you start doesn't predicate where you end.
Yes. Yes. Oh, I love that, because there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What's the most unexpected reaction you've received from an audience?
I think the probably I'm trying to think what would be the most unexpected. I think probably people were, because I show there, I appear, with a level of competence, with a level of confidence. I think the most unexpected reaction is how people reacted when I shared the moments after my initial, a diagnosis, the moments of frustration, the moments of anger, the moments of where I was mad at the world. I was mad at my God. I was just mad. And people are like, wow, you seem to be so, got it together. I said, no. when there are times when I didn't have it together. And there's even times now where I get tired of the management that this condition entails. I get tired. In fact, the other night, my sugar was high, and then I'm trying to get it low. It was low, and it was kind of all over the place. And I was trying to do the right thing, but I was just mad. I'm like, this condition is so invasive. It's so disruptive. It's so I think all that, intertwines. But now I just try to, maintain an even keel. You always sit back and say, well, at the very end of the day, I'm still alive and I'm still able to interact with my family. And that's a blessing.
Oh, wow. How do you balance vulnerability and professionalism in your talks?
I think for me, it's about transparency. When I think about vulnerability, I think so often we in a society where we put on armors, we put on masks, we want people to see a certain element of us that is not embarrassing or demonstrates no vulnerability whatsoever. But the fact of the matter is, and what I've discovered, I've sat in a few what do you call them, not these sessions where you kind of talk about your experience and like like Alcoholics Anonymous, but it's something for diabetes where you talk about your experience with diabetes, and when you see the people and you listen to their stories and you see how similar the stories are one for another, and you recognize that everybody is going through something that it may not be your exact steps, but they're very similar. And I think that to answer your question as far as the vulnerability component. Now, what was the second part of that question?
And professionalism.
Oh yeah. So that's how I tie it all up together. Is that I deal with this thing on a daily basis, but I'm still required to go about my life with respect and, like you said, professionalism. And I've survived. I've been in the industry. I've been in the hospital for 10 years. I've been in the industry for 12, 13 plus years on different levels within medical affairs. And I've always, even with the challenges of my condition, because there were times where my sugar may have dropped in a meeting and I can't concentrate or something. I have to have something that to kind of get my sugar up. But in spite of all that, I've always held my head high in spite of my condition, because I didn't, you can have a condition, but I've always vowed that for me to be an example to my children, an example to other young men and women that are around me, that I always have to let them know that in spite of your weaknesses, you still have strength.
You know something, I'm going to tell you before this next question. I want you to know that, and just listening to you speak, especially when you talk about the part about the diabetes, you inspire me.
Oh.
Honestly, you inspire me.
Yeah.
Because, I know that that's a hard thing for a lot of people to deal with.
Right.
And, sometimes I think that ability to, to have those struggles in the beginning,
right.
Sometimes, it can cause you to go even further off the rails.
That's right. It can change you.
But in listening to you, you took this head on and you've met this challenge, and you're like, you're just living your life.
I'm just living my life because I recognize that diabetes is not a death sentence. It's just a condition. And if you control it, it won't control you. And that's the way I have to live my life, because I know it's there. I always have to be aware. But if I'm just fixated on that, like too much of life will pass me by, and I can't. That again will supersede my purpose.
Yes. What's one keynote topic you feel the world needs more of right now?
To me, I think is, one of the things that I try to emphasize, and I don't know if this is necessarily in line with what you're asking me, but one of the things that I do talk about is I try to encourage people, particularly those who have diabetes, to always be screened for lower limb peripheral vascular disease, because we are the number one demographic that deals with amputations of our limbs. And I've seen so many of my friends, I've seen so many of relatives, I've seen so many people that have been amputated, and that's always been their only option. Well, working for a company that actually develops devices that open up vessels in your lower limbs to offset that particular condition, my whole emphasis and impetus now is not only do I talk about diabetes, not only do I talk about the emotional component of diabetes, but I also tell people, listen, if you having issues with your legs, I give them the symptoms, I give them things to look for, but I also want them to understand that we have the technology in 2025 where they're able to go into your legs. They're able to intervene and prevent and save your limbs. That's one of my big impetus is to let us know, because we don't know this. I've talked to so many people, and they're like, "Are you really serious? Really? Yes, I'm serious. Yes, it's a real thing, and yes, we need to learn more about it." But everybody, if you don't learn about it, they may not even tell you everything about it, because many times your primary care, they don't even look at that as an option. But I try to educate. If you have a family member that's having these issues, there are options. If he doesn't understand or isn't willing to treat it, then get a second opinion. I'm big on second opinions.
How do you measure the impact of your speaking engagements?
I think it's very impactful because I believe in trying to be real. I think that it's very, very, very impactful to really share your personal testimony. I'm not speaking from theory, from a hypothetical scenario. I'm telling you how it is, how it was with me, and that's usually how I share my story. I always let them know this is what I've dealt with, this is what I deal with, and this has been my experience. And I think that when I share my experience, I have noticed that it's been very impactful, because people have come up to me afterwards and say, "I've learned something today," or "I'm getting phone calls. Can you help me with this?" And oh, I'm dealing with that, or I have relatives that are dealing with this. And you just open my whole eyes to a whole another level of existence. And that's my purpose. My purpose is to educate. My purpose is to let people know that just I want you to be an informed patient. I want you to be an informed person.
What advice would you give to aspiring speakers in the health and wellness space?
I would just say that, the name of the game is prevention. The medical system right now is designed for intervention and for maintenance. But for me, my goal is to not be a part of the medical system. What can I do that will prevent me from ending up on a table, ending up in someone's emergency department, obviously outside of accidents. I'm talking about from a systemic physiologic component perspective. And so I would like them to speak on prevention. What can we do to mitigate some of these things? Not only prevention, but what are some other ways of dealing with some of the challenges that we deal with, whether it's heart disease, whether it's hypertension, whether it's trying to prevent strokes, and just some of the really serious conditions that are disabling or just debilitating. Trying to get them to really use your knowledge to not only to intervene, but also to educate them how they can do better.
So let's transition to your medical consultancy and your clinical affairs expertise.
Mm-hmm.
You spent over 2 decades in clinical and medical affairs.
Mm-hmm.
What's changed most in that time?
We're sicker. I mean, the technology has definitely changed. Within the introduction of AI, with things are much more automated. They're much more integrated. I was there when you went from transition from the written records to the electronic medical records. I went through all that transition. But I think reason why I say that I was saying we're sicker is because I remember when I started out roughly in the late 90s in the hospital and early 2000s, but usually it was late 90s. And I remember a few years into this thing, I remember it was almost like a shock to see a patient under 60 coming in, or even under 65 coming in for heart surgery. I mean, that was like, wow, this guy's young. This is crazy. When I left, just 10 years later, it went from a few times a year to multiple times a month. to the point even more so within a month. And it's even worse now. I mean, and I think that really surprised me how we There has been this more of an effort to try to improve health, but in spite of all that, people, they don't really, how can I put it? It's almost like it's not a problem until it becomes a problem. And so people live their lives vicariously. They do what they want to do. They eat what they want to eat. They drink what they want to drink, as long as there's no problems. The minute there's a problem, now all of a sudden you're laser focused on, oh, what's going on here? But if you had done a little bit more before then, you might have been able to mitigate and not got to that point. And I think one of my challenges is trying to help people to understand that, for every cause that everything that you deal with, there was an original starting point. It had a point of origination in etiology. If you look at break it down, how it was broken down, and I help people to understand that the earlier and that we can intervene on something, or even if it's just lifestyle, just cut back. Try not to be. You're not going to last forever. You're not going to be 20 forever, So don't do things in your 20s that now you're scaling back in your 40s because you're trying to recapture and trying to recuperate from things that you've done in your youth. And that's kind of the overlaying theme that I try to encourage people that, when you have the time to do better, use that time to do better.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. What does your role as a medical consultant typically involve?
For me, a lot of what I do actually is advocacy, and a lot of people's come. Like I said, I'm not a physician, but I know how to talk to physicians, and so a lot of times, like for example, it started with my family. My family would call me and Mark, my mother, my aunt, our grandmother or whatever, somebody's in the hospital and they're talking to her, but she doesn't really understand what they're saying, and they telling her all this, and what does all this mean? And I always take the time to interject and say, hey, what are they saying? What's going on? And now with HIPAA, they'll usually will sign me off and say, okay, can you call the doctor and kind of get a better. And I always was the bridge to explain what they're doing to the family. And that's where it kind of began. It began right there at home. And I kind of expanded that out because I realized that was not unique to just the family, that a lot of people are, even in this information age, a lot of people are fed a lot of information, but that doesn't necessarily mean they understand the dynamics of that information. And so what I try to do is I try to take complex information, make it palatable where, anybody can understand it, and try to bridge that gap because, their goals and their purpose is treatment and intervention, but some are not very good at breaking down the mechanics of what's going on and giving them and breaking it down where it's palatable for a lot of people, because that's just, their mindset is different. And so I just try to be the middleman in that regards.
So how do you bridge the gap between clinical science and community health?
Well, one of the things I do is, just like I was telling you before, I basically talk to people and say, hey, the different things that we're dealing with, this is what they're working on. For example, diabetes. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and that's not something that I can reverse in and of myself, because it's an autoimmune condition. But what they're working on now is utilizing stem cells to kind of help regenerate, cells of the pancreas, where those cells now start to produce insulin. Where now they're having studies where people are within 6 months of this treatment are now completely cured of diabetes, of type 1 diabetes. So for me, I just like people to be aware, okay, that now that if you're a diabetic, maybe it might not be a bad idea for you to utilize some of the technology, kind of stay on top of your condition. I use my phone because this is my meter. For my CGM that I have a Dextron, monitor, and it monitors my sugars, and it's a great trending tool for me. It helps me if my sugar's too high, helps me if my sugar's too low, helps me just to stay cognizant of what, just making sure my health is where it needs to be, my levels are where they need to be. So these are the types of things I help people understand, that there are things out there that can make life better, that can make make this managed condition much easier. And I just try to help them understand some of the latest advances that are going on without having to read all these technical reviews. I just say, hey, they're working on this and they're working on that, and we just have a discussion. I try to make it just a conversational versus technical.
So what's one innovation in cardiovascular medicine that excites you?
I think, the thing that excites, I think I'm probably most excited by the innovations in diabetes, but in cardiovascular medicine, I think the thing that excites me the most is that simple things can go a long ways in health. I think we're living in a society that a pill determines, or they use a pill as a barometer of health.
Yes.
A pill for this, a pill for that, a pill for this pill, and the pill because this pill causes this. So here, this is a pill for. I tell people all the time, what excites me the most is the age-old remedies are still effective. Getting out there, go for a walk in nature, works every muscle, including your heart. Breathing fresh air, sunshine, getting rest. That excites me the most, because it's age old, and in spite of the complexities of various disease presentations, unless it's something that's we call it congenital, that you're born with, most likely it could be reversed by diet, by exercise, and by lifestyle. So that, to me, is the most exciting thing about cardiovascular medicine, because I think that, yes, the innovations are great. Yes, the interventions have become much more sophisticated. But the core end, even in cardiac surgery, for example, I always thought it was interesting that we were, I call myself a plumber, because we basically, the vasculature, they put you on a machine, and they basically, when they go in with heart surgery, they actually will provide, they'll reroute blood and go around blockages and that sort of thing. But never did, there was the emphasis of, don't come back here. What caused you to come here in the first place, if you change your lifestyle, and it goes right back to that could prevent you from coming back again. And I think too often times we really underlie the preventative component of all of this. And intervention is great, and it's nice to have intervention, but if you can live a lifestyle, a holistic lifestyle that prevents a lot of these presentations from happening in the first place, you can stay away from the cardiac cath lab. You can stay out of the OR. You can stay out of the ER by just making some simple, wholesome changes in your life.
How do you advise key opinion leaders and industry professionals?
Basically, key opinion leaders are basically, many of these guys are experts in their particular therapeutic area. For me, for years, I was what they call a medical science liaison. So I was basically the go-between between the company. I was the field-based representative of the company on the medical side of the fence. You have field sales and you have marketing, which basically more commercial. The medical side focused more on just data dissemination and sharing of data, and discussing our trials, discussing our drugs or devices, depending on what you're supporting. And so my goal was to go, and my purpose was to go and communicate to them medically what you were just saying before, from a technical sense of, this is what we're doing, this is what we're looking for. Are you interested in doing research with us, or if you have questions about this new particular therapy, we want you to try our therapies, whether they try it for a little while, and then give us feedback on how do you like it, do you not like it, what are some of the challenges you see with it. So all that was kind of the go-between that I used to do in the from a professional standpoint. What that has done for me in a private scenario is open up the opportunity for me to know how, first of all, how to identify, how to reach out to certain people. I know how to network. is providing me and also I still have relationships with a lot of people. I know how to navigate the hospital. I know how to, the certain people that I need to talk to, even making referrals. There are times where people have called me and said, Mark, do you know a good cardiologist? I said, sure, I know somebody. And I can reach out to their people and say, hey, would you be willing to see this person, that person? Many times they'll bypass, many times, I can bypass the long, laborious process that it'll take them and get a fast track right there. So I mean, basically being able to communicate with these guys on a collegial level where it's not just about sharing information, but also it's becoming a respected colleague and peer to peer.
So what's your approach to ethical consulting in the medical field?
I think that, again, when you think about ethics, like I said, I mean that can go in a lot of different directions. But
yes, it can.
But for me, I think that I try to help people understand, one of the biggest challenges in our healthcare delivery system, particularly for African Americans, is that we call it access to care. And there's a couple of things. A lot of people say, well, I think the biggest thing I try to encourage people is that every medical professional is not your enemy. And they're good people as well as bad people in any point of society. And I think for me, it hurts me when I see so many of our people that don't really have any consistency of care. They either show up in the ER or the operating room. I mean, I should say not, or the emergency department. Either that or urgent care. That's their doctor. They're not followed. They don't have yearly checks. So if there's things going on, they're not. They fall between the cracks, and COVID exposed that. We had so many people that had underlying conditions, didn't even know it because they hadn't been followed. They haven't been at a doctor. So COVID just added to the whole myriad of complexity, causing poor outcomes and increased mortality. So I think that for me, the ethical component is helping people understand that, you have to at least get checked out, at least have someone follow your care, at least recognize that there are ways and there is access to, to care. And I think too often I think one of the biggest challenges from the ethical standpoint is when I was with a company that we were developing a product in support of sickle cell anemia. And that was a huge area of issues because so many patients, there was such a divide because these patients were in constant pain. And when they go to the ER, they looked at suspiciously, oh, you're just here for drugs. You're a drug addict. No, I hurt. That's why I'm here. And I think, again, I was very involved in trying to help ER docs to understand the dynamics of sickle cell anemia, and that these people, they just want to be comfortable. They're not drug addicts. And that's again another component of the huge ethical challenges that exist, that we try to work through. But it's helping people understand that I'm not here because I'm an addict. Mm-hmm. I'm here because I'm a patient seeking help.
Well, you mentioned something earlier when you mentioned COVID, and not that it ever went anywhere, but now it's back on the rise. Yeah. And that new strand that's out now is causing an enormous amount. What's affecting everybody here in the what they call it here in where you breathe at the breathing area.
Exactly. Exactly. One they call it the razor edge, something like that, because basically people are getting a really sharp sore throat along with some of the other presentations.
Yeah. And so with that being on the rise, and as you mentioned before, as of what happened in 2020, with that being on the rise, I mean, how many more things you think could actually go wrong with that? Because they're saying that some of these people from the 2020 effects of COVID have got this thing that they call long-term COVID.
Yep.
And so I'm like, well, how the hell does that work? Well, you got something where you don't know what it is,
right?
But it's affecting you and it's causing you all these different issues.
Right.
So with this one being more respiratory, and let's just, and let's just talking about this because I know we're not doctors, but I mean, like, what do you think some of the effects of that could be?
Well, I know one of the things that really went under the radar for COVID, and I know this for a fact because a few years ago, back during that time frame, there were some scientists. There was a guy from Colorado, and there was another group of scientists in Boston, and they were doing research, and they discovered that, and it really wasn't very well publicized, but the biggest issue with COVID back then, and I still think it's still an element of it, is that they were more focused on the infectious component of COVID, but didn't recognize that COVID was causing coagulopathy or issues in the coagulation system. So many times, in fact, they had done. There was this group that did, numerous autopsies on COVID-related deaths from ARDS, or acute respiratory distress syndrome, and they found out that they didn't necessarily die from inflammation; they died from poor circulation in the capillaries. The capillaries, the blood. So they put them on 100% oxygen on the ventilator, but the oxygen it wasn't very effective because the capillary circulation was very sluggish, if that. And so these patients died. They basically suffocated to death. So I think that again, not fully understanding the dynamics of these conditions, and everybody focusing on over here instead of looking over there. In fact, if you remember when Trump was in office the first time, when he contracted COVID, you remember that they said they gave his drug regimen. The last one that was part of that regimen was he was on baby aspirin. The same thing the antiplatelet, same thing they give you if you're trying to, if you're at risk for a heart attack or stroke. So my point is, coagulopathy was always there in the background, but they never really appreciated it, and they never really put a lot of research money into it. And I think that is some elements that may have even contributed with long COVID, because obviously, if you have poor circulation, if you have poor blood flow, you can have some challenges, some silent challenges that can go on that sometimes can even go undiagnosed. And even with you've seen weird manifestations afterwards where you have healthy people dying from heart attacks, and people that had COVID having some of these cardiovascular quote unquote issues, and you're thinking, well, what's causing all of this? But it's definitely was some very trying times, and as it comes back again, especially with the administration's assault on vaccines. I mean, I'm not saying that vaccine is the end all do all, because I agree that I don't need a vaccine for everything, but at the same time, we would be crazy to deny the fact that vaccines did not slow down many of these childhood diseases that we see today, like measles, mumps, and some of these rubella, yes.
Yeah, well,
and you're seeing a rebound. Yeah,
because I know I remember before going to school, in elementary school, we had to get those shots and be vaccinated.
That's right.
And I don't think there was nothing that came back that these folks are around here now talking about the children of getting autism from the shots and
right.
all of that kind of stuff. So, I mean, people believe what they believe. So, I mean, but that's kind of like out there, I think, because, now what got me is a lot of these things that they were telling me that I had to get when I went to college.
Right.
And I'm like, wait a minute, I had this as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm getting this again because we got folk that's come from all these foreign countries.
Right.
And so they're bringing in all this other stuff. And so with them bringing all this other stuff in, and well, we got folks that's not doing their due diligence from the scientific perspective anyway. Right. So they're keeping us behind on that. But right. I mean, all of that's like a problem and a train wreck that's waiting to happen.
And it like you said, the train is at the station.
Yes.
And it's about to go down and the bridge is out.
Yes, exactly.
I totally agree with you. And I think for me, even every medication, if it's not natural, will have side effects. So even if, hypothetically speaking, that was a side effect, it's still, if you compare it to the number, it's to me, I look at it as flying. Yeah, I know a plane can crash, but how often does that happen? And when you look at the number of planes, the people that are moved back and forth every single day. If you go to an airport, it's packed with people moving to and fro. So all these people are being moved from plane, but yet when one crash occurs, it's a highlighted, wow, that it's a big deal because obviously loss of life. But my point is, when you compare it to the number of traffics, or I should say the number of flights daily, that's why it's considered the safest mode of transportation, because the amount of people that are moved without incident. And that's the way I look at it in some of these cases with some of these vaccines. I mean, it helped more people than it ever hurt. Not to say that it's not capable of hurting, but my point is that there was a whole level of childhood diseases that were pretty much eradicated over the course of, millions versus even few that may present with some side effects, if indeed that was the case. So that's kind of my point in all of this, is that with any because I have a background in toxicology, and one of the things I tell people all the time about drugs is that there's nothing better than natural, but it's just more specified or more focused. It works quicker, but because it doesn't have all the cofactors and so forth in there, then that opens up the door for side effects. And so, we come a long ways, with our pharmaceutical grade drugs. But at the same time, if I can go and, eat me some veggies that gives me the vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals that I need to fight off this, that, and the other, I don't have side effects unless I have an allergy to the particular, whatever I'm eating, if I don't have an innate allergy. So, I think that it's a mindset. We just have to understand that when you have a trial, or when you're investigating medication or something, and yes, you can have some negative, components to it, but you've got a whole generation of people that were protected because of these things.
Yeah. And let's transition over to your advocacy for diabetes and heart disease. Your personal testimony around diabetes is powerful. How do you share it with intention?
Well, I help people. I think, again, as I said before at the very beginning, the biggest detriment in health to me is you. Because let me preface that. Let me explain what I mean by that. I mean, too often as a man, or too often as people, we blow things off as not a big deal. And when you think of some people who had serious complications, you could always trace back and say, when was the first time you noticed something different? And I think that's kind of the, you know your body better than anybody. If something's not right, get it looked at, get it checked. Don't sit on it, And I tell people all the time, that they even those that don't want to take medicine, I'm like, listen, you got to know what you're treating. It's fine. It's it's fine to pop this and pop that, but just because you have a headache doesn't mean the issue's in your head. Just because you have a backache doesn't mean that the issue's in your back. So I said, pain travels, it radiates. I mean, you don't know. Get it checked out before you and have a better understanding of what you're doing, what you're treating. And that's the same thing. I think that's my biggest message is that part of health is awareness. And they can't do anything for you if you put yourself in a situation where now it's critical and they have to throw the kitchen sink at you to try to get you out of the situation that you're in, that you could have, you could have mitigated had you just come in earlier. I mean, obviously there's certain situations where, it's emergent and it just happens like that. But still, many times those emergent situations are a result of things that everything doesn't happen immediately, particularly for cardiovascular disease, that when you're thinking about blockages and that sort of thing, that's not something that happens overnight. It happens over time. And sometimes in the occurrence of that, or the building up to that point, that critical mass, sometimes you begin to notice things as, your endurance is good, or you experience some pains, or if you exercise or stuff like that. If it seems a little out of sorts, don't sit on it and say, well, it's not a big deal, because it may be.
What's the biggest misconception about living with diabetes?
That that you can't really live. And I say that means that you can't, that you have to watch everything you eat, and you can't eat any sugar. I think sugar is probably the biggest misconception. I tell people all the time that if you eradicated sugar completely out of your diet, I said you wouldn't survive very long, because your body needs sugar to survive. So the fact of the matter is, we have to understand, what is this condition all about, and understand, okay, it's not just about sugar. It's a metabolic condition. It's the cells have been modified, are not functioning like they should. And for a person with type 1 diabetes, the body's attacking itself and knocking it out of commission. There's some people that become diabetic just from drug interactions. They've taken a particular drug, and the body reacted in a crazy way and knocked out the pancreas. So I'm just saying there's so many, but I think the biggest misconception is how diabetes presents. They think that, well, the only reason I got diabetes because I ate cupcakes too often. And not to say that cupcakes don't impact the course of that, but I'm just saying it's a lot more involved in that, and it's not just about the cupcakes. It's about just the holistic health. What are some of the other things you don't do? So I think that's a big misconception.
How do you support others navigating chronic illness?
I think again, it starts with the holistic component of everything. I keep going back to holistic because so often we focus on one thing and we don't recognize that it's just a part of the many things. And see, for me, and I say that all the time, because even from a cardiovascular standpoint, I think about people. If the doctor tells you that you are, unless you have a heart condition where, let's say, you have AFib or atrial fibrillation, which is sometimes that's a cardiovascular condition where you could, the valve is, I don't know if I go into all the details of all that, but basically you can throw clot up into your, in the pulmonary tree and cause issues with that, stroke and that sort of thing. I think that I think people have to understand that, like I was saying before, if you're at risk for stroke, you're also potentially at risk for a heart attack. If you're at risk for a heart attack, you're also potentially at risk for peripheral vascular disease, because it's all connected, and people need to understand that the etiology or formation of some of these anthromatous plaque in your vessels, they happen all over. That's why many people who have had a prior heart attack, they've often discovered that they had issues in their legs and they had poor circulation in their legs. The same process that generates all these things. So I think I want people to understand that holistic health is critical, and that's why I keep going back to my 8 health principles, which involves fresh air, sunshine, and rest. Now, rest is probably the most underappreciated component of health, because rest is where your body repairs itself. During rest is where 99% of repair is occurring. And if you don't get enough rest, your body's not repairing itself as efficiently as it should, which is again going to further kick the can down to additional problems, because now you're not, you didn't fully recuperate, fully recover, fully refresh, and now you're operating at a deficit from that perspective. So people need to get rest, as well as watch their diet, as well as exercise, as well as fresh air, as well as sunshine, and also water. Water is essential.
Well, I'll tell you this. I am one that I can honestly tell you, I got that rest issue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I'm like working too much and I try so hard. And it just always seems like things just keep compounding.
Yeah.
But I'm working on that, because I agree with you 500%. You got to have that rest.
Yeah, you have to, because it resets you and it refreshes you. And even with from a psychological component, I mean, all of the things that your body has taken in throughout the day is categorized, and it's kind of like putting your database, your data banks for and clearing some things out, getting you ready for the new day of exploration and observation and exposure. So but when it comes to the body, it's interesting how people say, well, rest is not as important. But what does a baby do? It's in its early infancy, as it grows. Sleeping has an important component, and that doesn't change even though you mature.
What are some practical strategies for thriving with heart disease?
I think, first of all, as I said before, I think it's critical that you do some mild to moderate exercise. I say mild. I think the biggest thing for holistic healing, let me put it to you this way. The best exercise that anybody can do is a walk. Walking exercises every muscle. It strengthens your brain function. It strengthens your heart. Why? You breathe in fresh air. You breathe in oxygen. You breathe it. Your body is every organ is being rejuvenated by the blood flow, and your mind is being rejuvenated. And just it's so many people think when they say, well, you need to increase your exercise. Get yourself you could go to one of these health clubs and whatever. No, just go around the block and just do that consistently. And that in of itself, because it improve your endurance, it improve your and your body responds to being outdoors in go out in nature, go to a park, just walk, your body responds to that sort of thing. And so if you have cardiovascular disease, the main thing you want to do is you want your body to be robust. Like I said, depending on what type of cardiovascular disease that you have, because there's multiple kinds that you deal with. But if it's more so related to blockages and atherosclerosis and those types of cardiovascular disease, definitely walking is the thing to do.
How do you advocate for health equity in underserved communities?
I think, again, it's partnering with advocacy groups that help to educate, talking to at churches, particularly, in inner city churches, everybody being part of health ministries, going and talking and being part of health fairs, where you're educating people, that come to some of these health fairs, giving them a glimpse of what they may not be getting, in their regular, regular lifestyle. So I think taking a part of community events, community engagement events are very, very, very critically important for me as well. Going to these health fairs where the clinicians out there may be testing them for,
screening of various illnesses, educating them. Say, hey, what do you eat? What's your diet consist of? Do you eat a lot of fruits? Do you eat vegetables? Is it all processed? Is it all fast food? And just educating them on what is the best way to best types of diets to go to impart in, and just lifestyle. Is your kid in front of the screen? Is he doing a lot of screen time? Is he just watching video games, or is he out playing games and playing sports, or just out there just enjoying fresh air? Just giving people a different perspective.
So what role does faith play in your healing journey?
Faith is all in my healing journey, because I realize that for me, I feel that God made me and he knows what's best for me. And I look at him as the manufacturer with the warranty. And he's basically given us health principles in his word. That's clearly tells us what our original diet was. It tells you how our diet deviated, and also tells us what is necessary for us to stay healthy. Because there's many examples in the Bible where he says that, there were times when even the Israelites, they said there were none sick among us when they went into the land of Canaan land. And so my point, and he says that I will bless you, with good life if you follow health principles. So, if we abide by the one who made us, if we pull out the owner's manual, just like we do with our car, and that's what's so interesting for me, is that we take better care of our cars.
Yo.
Than we do ourselves. We change the oil every 3,000 to 6,000 miles. We rotate the tires. We do what we have to do to keep these premium machines running. But when it comes to us, it doesn't matter.
How do you use your platform to amplify awareness around cardiovascular health?
Basically, I tell them that it's very, I tie in how closely related it is, particularly for diabetes. Diabetes and cardiovascular disease, they go pretty hand in hand, because one impacts the other. With the sugars, highs and lows, that impacts vessels, that impacts the vasculature. So they're very, one can impact the other. So what I try to do is help people understand that I'm a diabetic. I'm always, I'll run a higher risk, but I can offset that by lifestyle changes. And that's what I try to do now. Again, like I said, I've been a type 1 diabetic for 25, almost 26 years. My hemoglobin A1C is 5.8, 5.9. So me being a type 1 for 25 years, under 6, my doctors are like, I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. And so I just try to help people understand that, health is holistic. Health is not a pill. And you have to take the time to work on every component and every aspect of your life. You can't just focus on eating good. Eating good is great. You got to eat good. But make sure, like you said, drinking a lot of water. Make sure that you get enough rest, and all these little things that I've highlighted before.
What's your take on the intersection of race, stress, and heart disease?
I think the intersection is it's a collision. I think it's a 12-car pileup. Because one thing, the stress of the stress of scrutiny and abuse and racism. Our body. It's a known fact that our bodies are react to external stressors. That's a known fact. And when we are constantly under the gun, constantly trying to rectify, constantly looking over our shoulders, that can impact our health. And there's a reason why we're leading a lot of these, we're the one demographic that has the golden bullet, leading to top of cancer, top of heart disease, top of, even in diabetes, and, even women. They're in of themselves, just they always they're under a fair amount of stress, and then a lot of women are finding out that they have that's the number one cause of death for women is heart disease. So the intersection is beyond. Like I said, it's a polyp.
How do you encourage small steps towards wellness?
I think what I was saying before, I think cutting back, particularly when it comes to like our diets, try to reduce all the bad stuff. I'm not saying not stop cold turkey. That's hard to do, but reduce it. Maybe cut back on that milkshake, and maybe instead of three donuts, eat two or eat one, ribs. Kind of cut back on the ribs. Try to cut back on a lot of the heavy red meats. Eat more fish. I mean, eat more lean foods. Eat more vegetables. Grab a salad. Even a salad with some of the other types of foods will help continue to move things through where you want balance. And you just don't want, so many times, and we've seen it time and time again, where if you look at a plate, just kind of balance it out, where you have the carb, you have your protein, you have your vegetable, and just make sure that it's a complete package. That sides have been put to the side, but sides many times should be elevated because they have a lot of the nutrients that we need, and we need to cut back on some of the main courses and maybe elevate more of the sides, because that can really provide more balance in what we eat. So I'm just saying, diet is one of them. Again, as I said, walking. You don't have to go to get an expensive health membership. Just go for a walk. Go to a mall and walk, or a store. Just walk in a parking lot. But you don't need to have an expensive machines in your basement. Just go out there and just try to do better. Get rest. Get fresh air. Get sunshine.
What's one daily habit that's transformed your health?
Besides trying to get more rest, I think just my diet. I've cut back a lot of my sweets. I don't eat a lot of I try to be cognizant of my diet. I think that's really has been a big thing for me. As a type 1 diabetic, it's important that I watch the amount of complex carbohydrates that I eat. So my days of eating pizza at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday night watching the game, or a Sunday watching the game.
That's kind of hard to not do, right?
That's right. But I have to reduce that. And if I do it, if I did it last Sunday, I can't do it next Sunday. I'm just saying, just moderation is the key. Too much of anything, good or bad, is bad for you.
I also, when I reached out to you, I let you know that we do Black History 365.
Yes.
And I asked you who was the most influential person in Black history in your life, in your career.
Mm-hmm.
And you told me that person was Dr. David R. Williams.
That's right.
What was your first encounter with Dr. Williams' work, and how did it shift your understanding of Black health disparities?
Well, what's interesting for me is I've been knowing him while he came to my church when he was actually a graduate student at the University of Michigan. And that's where I met him. I was there doing my research, doing some lab work, and his offices weren't that far from where my labs were. And so I saw him at church, went and visited him many times, and I didn't really understand fully what he was into, what he was doing. But over time, I watched his career kind of accelerate. And he's a man who just I call it the Midas touch. I mean, he was actually selected on the Committee for Health Disparities that was under DHS or HSS during the time of Clinton, when he was appointed on his presidential commission. He was very active during COVID, highlighting the health disparities that existed. He's a professor at Harvard University right now. He was so sought after, but he's such a humble man, and but yet very learned man. And he's a man that is, he's a leader in his field. And so he was somebody that I saw his humble beginnings. I saw him his ascent up the ladder. And even now, I watch him as he is a noted professor at the esteemed Harvard University. And I think that's truly something that he inspires me.
He's always told me to, he's helped, my book. He actually was one of my, he actually was one of my reviewers, and he's just been very instrumental in my life, and I give him so much credit for just being the support and the example that he left as a man, as a Black man, in higher level institution, particularly in Ivy League schools, and just the way he carries himself with humility, but yet he was a man that esteems pride.
So, in what ways has Dr. Williams's research on racism and health shaped your approach to patient care and advocacy?
Well, again, trying to identify and educating. My thing is, looks like my battery's getting low on this thing. I got to charge it up.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, I'll just do one more question because I was trying to fit a lot in because there's a lot of questions I haven't got a chance to ask. So I'm going to ask you to have to come back anyway. So I'll ask you one more question after this one.
Okay. Can I get my cord to plug this up?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Give me 1 second. All right. How's that?
Okay.
Can you see? Or is that bothering you? Let me see.
No, you're fine.
All right. Okay. And what was that question?
In what ways has Dr. Williams's research on racism and health shaped your approach to patient care and advocacy?
Well, he definitely highlighted the need for advocacy for me. I think that my biggest, again, focus is to help people to navigate the current healthcare system. And so what I try to do is try to reduce barriers to access. And I tell people all the time that if you don't have the greatest insurance, it doesn't matter. They are responsible for addressing your concerns. And I've seen how, unfortunately, the healthcare system has kind of let people down because everything is based on money, how good your insurance is. If you don't have the highest tier insurance, a lot of times, and that's even happened to some of my family members. A lot of times they don't necessarily go the extra mile. They just, patch it with a Band-Aid and send you out the door. But I always try to encourage people to go places that they feel that they feel wanted, go to places that are ethical and that will address any and all of their concerns. And I try to help people understand too that, explain to them the dynamics that exist, and try to help them mitigate through challenges if they're dealing with their doctors, or if they're not, trying to encourage them to go get checked out on a regular basis, get it physical, so all these types of things I try to encourage.
And so can you share a moment in your career where Dr. Williams's teachings directly influenced a decision or breakthrough?
Oh my goodness. I think one of the things that he impressed me the most was actually when I wrote my book. I was inspired to write my book after a conversation with a friend of mine, but I thought about Dr. Williams' work in healthcare disparities. And again, I saw it when we used to go to clinics, the diabetes clinics, when I first was initially diagnosed. And I never really paid attention to it until I was actually impacted. And when I saw how, the people, so many of the people were coming in there were so lame and damaged and injured because of, a lot of cases was because of their lack of health care, lack of, they weren't being followed. Their health care
was sporadic, and that motivated me to educate. And that was something that David really was a big proponent of, is highlighting these discrepancies in care. And that motivated me to really be about um, just shouting the alarm and helping us listen. Okay, you work for a company, you got health care, but think of your relative, think of your friend that may be down in this inner city or maybe out in the country, in a rural area. Somebody is not having the same level of intervention and care that you are. And what can we do about it? And as you know, I always think about, throwing out the life raft. We can't just live our life in a cocoon, or we what can we do to alleviate the suffering of those around us? And that's kind of my claim to fame. That's something that I'm motivated to do, and I feel that I'm willing to go to to churches and in the inner cities. I'm willing to go talk to our people wherever I can and let them know, you know, we have options, but we have to be, we have to work together, and we have to utilize the resources that are out there. There are resources that are out there that can help, and help us to be in better health. And that those are the types of things that I'm motivated. And David's, was a big, he's a big proponent of that, because he was one to believe that we all deserve proper access for care in this country.
So, in closing, are there any words of wisdom or encouragement that you have for our audience? You could tell them how they can connect with you on social media, your website, how to get your book, things of that.
Yeah.
That nature.
Well, first of all, as far as I say words of wisdom, I would say that keep in mind that your health is your greatest asset. And many times we take our health for granted. But if you think about look at your health again, like you look at a premium car. If you bought yourself a Ferrari, which most people maybe not be able to relate to, or even if you bought yourself, something to get you around the neighborhood, the fact of the matter is that if you don't take care of that machine, if you don't take care of it, it's not going to work well. You're going to know, eventually, that you're not putting in the time and the maintenance necessary for it to be sustainable. But so I just tell people all the time that your health is your greatest asset. If you want to be there for your children, if you want to be there for a husband, be there for a wife, or a father, be there for his daughter or son. If you take care of yourself, that puts you in the opportunity. That puts you in the. You'll have the opportunity to live your life to the fullest. And I think that we all can do this thing if we take good care of ourselves. We like I said, and my final comment would be, you better than anybody. If you see something that's not right, get it checked out. And so if you want to get in touch with me, my website is www.mdblive connext.com. And just shoot me an email. My email address is mark.brezzell@mdbliveconnects.com. You can email me anytime if you have questions that you have, but by all means, reach out to me. I'll try to get back with you. I believe in education, health advocacy. I try to, if you have any medical questions, I can refer you to the experts that can address your questions. I have a lot of friends. I have a huge network from my work of friends that I have all around the country, hospitals, big academic centers all around the country. So I can be a great resource for you. And also I'm available to speak if you want me to come and talk to your whatever group it is, whether it's employees for wellness, or if it's a church function where you want to have a health day, or just a seminar. I'm willing to do that as well. I'm available. I just want to share this information. I'm a diabetic. I'm a former clinician, and I spent years in industry. So I've seen the business side. I've seen them building, as they make all these devices and they make all these drugs. Also, I've been in a hospital treating patients with various issues, particularly around cardiovascular health. And now I am, I'm an advocate to go out there and share my testimony and let you know that you don't walk this trek alone. That I've dealt with it, and I relate to you, and maybe we can dialogue and help educate each other.
Well, I want to thank you for lending us your time, because this has truly been a great learning moment, and I can tell you for oneself, and I definitely appreciate you. But I definitely wish and I hope that we can have you back on the show again.
I'll be back.
Because there's lots and lots of questions here that I had that I wasn't able to get to, and I know that I went over my time with you, but
It's fine.
I really appreciate you being here.
No, I appreciate the invitation, and anytime you just let me know.
Will do.
All right.
For those of you that are watching on the YouTube channel and any of the other channels that you're watching on, I appreciate you guys for watching and taking time out in your day, in particular for watching this episode.
Yes.
Because it's this episode here where Mark is talking about the advocacy in healthcare, especially with diabetes and heart disease. Once those things that affect our communities oh so badly and so severe are things that we really need to not just take heed to, but to get our arms wrapped around them and get them under control.
Yeah.
I mean, I can honestly say, like myself, how it was a learning moment for me. I hope that it was a learning moment for most of you, if not all of you, because there are some things that we can all take from this that we can all improve on, but we can also get better and make ourselves be that person that we once were from a health perspective and live a whole lot longer.
Yes.
As he mentioned, these are not a death sentence unless we take them for granted.
Yes.
So for those of you that are watching on some of these channels, especially some of the YouTube channels, if you have not yet subscribed and gotten all the notifications, I ask if you would please do so now. I would definitely appreciate that, because what it would allow you to do is to actually get the opportunity to watch all the shows live as they happen. And you're also able to go back and watch the channel in which all of the, you can watch all of the previous recorded shows as well, and you can learn from all the other shows, all the information and things that you're looking for to make yourself or your life that much better. Also, we have a community that we've started, and I would appreciate for those of you that have not joined the community yet, if you would, please join the community. That is for both the podcast as well as the magazine, because you can watch the show from the community, as well as you can get access to the magazine there. I want to thank you all again for watching us tonight, and we will be back tomorrow night for a special edition of America in Black and White. So for those of you that that are and do wish to see the show tomorrow night, please tune in. Because we have a special that I'm sure that each and every last one of you can benefit from as well. Mark, I want to thank you for your time again. I'll definitely be in touch with you, with some dates as to what I have available where you can actually come back, because I appreciate everything that you have actually taught us this evening.
Appreciate it, and I'll be happy to come back.
Yes, sir. So again, this is Charles King signing off on America in Black and White, where we are coloring conversations on America's canvas. And I ask if you all would please join us again tomorrow night for a special as we continue to color conversations on America's canvas. Y'all have a great weekend.